Hello lovely beings, welcome to my kitchen. This is the very first ever kitchen cooking video, which came to me because this weekend it's Easter and I was handing out some chocolates that I made. Well, chocolates, they're these little granola things and I just happened to dip them in chocolate to some of my students this weekend, and someone said you should make a video and post the recipe on your website. Thank you for that great idea. Here it is, coming to fruition. So these little granola things, what really matters is the ingredients. Of course, what you put in it affects how they taste. So I'm gonna just go over a couple of the key main ingredients so you can decide for yourself where you wanna get them and what kind you wanna get. So let's talk about what makes them sweet first. You have to use this like a corn syrup. You can use any liquid sweetener, it needs to be liquid. Corn syrup gets a bad reputation, but it's really sticky, and these are no bake. They're super easy, you don't bake them, but the holding together comes from the oil that you use, coconut oil, because as it cools it hardens, and also this sticky sugar. Crown Lily White corn syrup, that's what I use. And also, look at you guys, it's a crown, which makes me think that it's like queen of all syrups, and Lily White reminds me of Snow White. And do you know, 7 men loved Snow White, and probably because she was using this stuff. Next up is the fat part of it. Let's not judge it. It's coconut oil, and this one I get at Costco. A lot of these ingredients I get at Costco because I make a lot of things and it's a good price, and this is organic virgin coconut oil. So this coconut oil has been nowhere near those 7 men. I recommend this brand, and it's pretty tasty. And if you know anything about coconut oils, there's unrefined and refined. The refined is just they process it longer and it has less of a coconutty taste. And so for certain things that I make, sometimes I use that because I don't want it to taste like coconut. But these ones, there's coconut in it, so it's kind of a nice flavor supporter. There's oats. I buy these ones, sprouted rolled oats. They're gluten free. And these ones, here's a tip, they're a bit big. You don't cook these. So what I do is with these ones, I put them in a little food processor. So I have them out here, but they taste really good. The alternative are these, like quick cooking oats, but the flavors, it's not as good. But maybe you like it. Hey, to each their own. You can use these, in which case, don't cut them up any smaller. But you know, here's something, I use this little thing all the time for even just like chopping onions. I don't want to chop an onion. What if I meet one of those 7 men and he wants to kiss my hand because he's a gentleman and it smells like onions? It's just a tiny little food processor. You can put 1 onion in it, or in this case, it'll fit 2 cups of something. So put some of these oats in a little chopper if you have one, and just buzz it around for a couple of moments until some of the oats get a little more, well, they decrease in size, which just makes it easier to eat these. But I highly recommend for the flavor using those. Unsweetened shredded coconut, you put some of that in there, and I find these ones quite long, so if you wanted to even chop these in there, you could throw them in there. We use a bit of some kind of filler flour. It's not flour if you want to make these gluten-free. I like sorghum flour. If you do any gluten-free baking, sorghum flour is a great substitute for texture-wise, how it holds up when you bake things. And also, if you look up what it is, it has some nutrition in it that I appreciate. And so I get mine from Galloway's, a health food store. And actually, it's not very expensive. And if you look at some of the gluten-free blends, flour blends, they'll have sorghum flour in there. So you need a little bit of something extra. You can use tapioca starch, you could use arrowroot powder, or rice flour. Rice flour has a taste, even more so than this, so I don't usually use it for things like this, but that's what I use in this case. And that's basically it. What's beautiful about these little things is that you can make them into any flavors you want. So here's some ideas. I put a little bit of decaf coffee grinds sometimes in the liquids. This then it makes it like that coffee mocha flavor. Decaf, so that I'm not responsible for keeping people awake all night unless we're dancing. This is also another little beauty I get from Costco, which is this peanut butter powder. So basically they incinerate peanuts. It takes some of the fat out, and who cares about that? But it just makes it into a fine powder, which goes really well with this. And you could turn them into peanut butter, add some chocolate chips, so peanut butter chocolate. For Christmas for my kids, my daughters, they're adults, but I made them all these cute little packages. It makes a good gift. This one, Tropical Paradise, I put dehydrated mangoes and coconut and some banana chips and some dehydrated pineapples in there. I did some chocolate covered strawberry ones where I got some dehydrated strawberries and put some chocolate in there. I think I added some cacao for that too. And also this spicy Christmas surprise blend, which I did sort of nutmeg, allspice, ginger, like the spices that are in a lot of Christmas baking. And look at how cute these packages are. That's a cute gift, you guys. I'm posting the recipe also on the information below so you can see. You just melt up a bit of the coconut oil and a bit of the syrup, half and half. It's the same amount of each. And then stir that together. You can add some vanilla too, which is really nice. I get this at Costco, and you know, this is one of the things. It used to be $32 a bottle, and now it's down to $16. Let's celebrate when things actually reduce in price. So half the proportions are half a cup of coconut oil, half a cup of syrup, and you can reduce that. If you feel like that's too sweet or if it's too thick, you can just gradually try a few different times and see if you can get it to something that works for you. I actually reduce it just slightly. It's 2 cups of the oats. I whirl them around. It's a third a cup of the gluten-free substitute or whatever you want to use for that, and also half a cup of the coconut. That's it. And your little flavorings if you want to. So here's another tip. This is a 2-cup measuring cup. I will use this because it's like a bowl and then there's less things to wash. Half a cup goes in here of the coconut oil, which I melt in the microwave, half a cup of the syrup, and then I can stir it around in here and dump it straight in, and it's less mess and it's very easy. We all need less things to do as far as cleaning up, so that's what I do. I'm gonna get to it. So I'll mix it together so you can see, and then I'll show you how to just dump it into the pan, press it down, throw it in your freezer, and ta-da! In case you just like spice racks and creativity. I don't know if you noticed this spice rack behind me. I do some carpentry, and so actually I built my entire kitchen from scratch. And this is one of the things that I designed and built myself with just some 1x3 pieces of maple and cut up a few hexagons, and I throw my little spice bottles on there. Also, I don't know if you can see from there, this is a fully extendable, like, additional countertop. And so when I'm making things, I can pull this thing out, which I also, it's like a cutting board. I laminated that out of the same kind of maple I made those out of. So there's just nothing you can't do if you decide to learn. A little thing about spices. I mean, a good spice makes everything. And when I was traveling, so I lived a bit in Latin America, and I brought my spices with me. I had like a suitcase full of clothing and a suitcase. I thought this was normal, because how do you get access to those spices if they don't exist in the places that you're living? So I had a full bag full of like cumin seeds and cardamom, especially. I used to brew my own chai tea all the time. And so cinnamon, although cinnamon is readily available in Mexico. And so actually half of these little jars I bought in Mexico or in Costa Rica. That's where I started finding these little jars that I thought were so cute. And then when I returned back to Canada, I built this shelf to house them. But lots of these came from there. Most people go to Mexico for a tan. I go there for spice jars. Once you've got it all mixed up, I usually put it in a 9x9 pan. And this is, you can double this recipe, you can triple it, put it in 9x13. It really doesn't matter. You could even put them in a loaf pan because it's just about how thick you want them to be. So if you want them a little bit thinner, almost like granola bar thickness size, I use a 9x9 pan, and I always line it with parchment paper because less cleaning. So you tear off a piece, press it in there. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. I'm not all about the fancy perfection. It's about the flavor. And a little bit of packaging is nice. Once you have the paper in there, dump it in and press it down. You can use another little bit of parchment paper to press it down, or even the paper from the edges. You just press it down so that it's firm. You really want to make sure you press it because that's what holds it together. If it's loosey-goosey when it goes into the freezer, it's going to be crumbly when it comes out. So make sure you really use some of your strength and power to compress it. Once you've pressed it into the pan, you pop it in the freezer for maybe 30 minutes or so. Take it out of the freezer, cut them up, and I'll show you what they look like when they're finished. Here they are, my darlings. Check these out. Easy to make, no bake, gluten-free, vegan. Makes a great gift. Try them. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.